back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie Megan and this is Weirdo Book Club. Today I am wrapping up 2024 with the best, worst, and most disappointing reads that I read this year. I decided to lump them all together because I've been making a lot of videos around this. I don't know what's going on with me, but I have been cranking them out. And I really just, I don't want to make 3 when I can make 1. And so I'm smushing them all in here together. We're going to start with the best, move on to the most disappointing, and then finally we will end with the worst, which honestly you don't even really need me to tell you, because if you just travel back through my page, you'll see all the rant reviews of the worst books I read this year. But we're going to be thorough. We're going to put them all in one place, and I'm not going to give like spoilery things here. I'm just going to tell you the title of the book, who wrote it, what genre it is, a brief synopsis, and then why I didn't love it, or was disappointed, or hated it, or loved it. I don't know. Whichever is applicable. I can't believe 2024 is over. I'm still actively reading too, so I have a last minute addition to add to my best of list, which is very exciting because I did not anticipate liking anything. I also didn't really anticipate reading a lot this month because I've just been in a slump. I don't know what's going on. But regardless, let's get started. We're going to start, like I said, with the best. Here are the best, in no particular order, books I read this year. Number 1, we have Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This is a sapphic horror novella, and it is my heart and soul. First of all, it's gorgeous. And the way that I loved this book can't really be put into words, but I'm gonna try. This is about a recently divorced woman and her first girlfriend who she meets and sees at a farmer's market and has a little bit of a bi-panic moment. Like, I didn't even know I liked girls. Can relate. The girl she meets at the farmer's market is a little odd, but aren't we all? And that's part of her charm, right? Maybe. I don't know. You'll have to read the book and find out. Even though I kind of knew where we were going the whole time I was reading it, Dawson made the journey fun in spite of that, and it was dark. It was dark. The cover, like I said, gorgeous. The writing flowed. There was gore. Number 2, again, these are in no particular order. I'm just tossing them out there. A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Dark, white shoes, poly vampire romance. A retelling of Dracula through the point of view of one of his brides. I picked this up and read it with friends, and we were having a time and a half in the group chat, let me tell you. It's queer, it's poly, it's bloody, it's smutty, it's dark, and it's beautiful. It's really well written. I loved the writing. It flowed really well. It read really easily to me, and I enjoy and appreciate that. There were a few things, if I'm being just honest, there's a few things that I would have changed. There's a few things that I wish had gone differently, but overall, still a great reading experience, and it's vampires, so who's surprised that I loved it? Next is The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. This is a historical literary fiction, and the way that I wept in my bed. This is a love story. It's not a romance, but it is a love story that spans a lifetime with all the ups and downs that come along with that. It's set in 1950s Iran, where amidst the political unrest, a young girl seeks sanctuary in the local stationery shop right off of the square. She meets a young boy there, and they fall for each other very quickly, and it's cute. But again, I wept. It was so beautiful and tragic and enveloping and just full scope of things. Like, I can't wait to read it again, and I can't recommend the audiobook enough. Next up, we have our December book club. So I made everybody read this. I liked it so much. I was like, we're reading this for December. The vote is closed. Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. This is a queer religious horror novel. And if I were on the fence about Chuck Tingle, I wasn't, but if I were on the fence when I first read Space Raptor Bud Invasion, Camp Damascus knocked me right off the fence, just pushed me all the way over. This tells a story about a religious-run organization conversion camp for youths that will scare you straight. How do they do it? Well, you'll have to read it and find out. I'm not going to tell you. You need to read it. And while you're at it, join our book club. We read all kinds of cool stuff. The link's below. Anyway, it's spooky, it's gripping, it's got religious themes, which I always love. There were moments that gave me genuine chills. There were also tender moments found throughout, and I really loved it. I can't wait to read his other novel, Bury Your Gaze. Next up, I'm so excited. I wrote this script and then I forgot what I put on it. So I am excited, and I'm living that here right now in 4K. The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. Witchy queer fiction. I had so much fun reading this. Was it a tad predictable? Sure. Did it kind of lag in the middle? Also, yes, maybe. Did it matter overall? Nope. And I'll tell you why. This follows a young girl who is kind of like not really sure where she fits in. She hasn't really found where she belongs in her life. She's like a young adult kind of gal. And then all of a sudden, it's revealed that she's a witch, and her grandma yoinks her up and takes her to a flower and bee covered little island cottage thing where she is taught her ways of witchery. And she has to watch the bees, tackle curses, go on adventures, save her friends. As I said, it's queer, and there was spice that I did not expect. Did I scream when I encountered it, both because it came out of nowhere and because it was kind of good? I'll never tell. Next up, now this is a weird one, okay? For me anyway. This might be a Tuesday for you, but you're going to think for a second that you're on the wrong channel, and I promise you that you're not. Just stay here, okay? Just sit down. A Taste of Poison by Tsonia Odette. This is a romantic fantasy. A romantasy? I don't know. I don't know. But this is a Snow White retelling with fae. I know. I am as shocked as you are because I'm not a big fantasy girly. I usually hear like dragons and fae. There's a map in the beginning of the book. I'm out. My brain doesn't absorb it. It's just, there's something blocking me from immersing because it's just too much, and I don't know what it is. I wish that I could read fantasy because it seems fun, but I just can't. However, this was just so damn enjoyable. I had such a good time reading it. In my opinion, it went a little slow, but I'm told that that's world building. Who knew? But despite that, I liked the world. I liked the characters. The plot was interesting, and I liked the slow build up of the relationship and watching them like have to coexist and figure things out. Like I said, it read a little slow, but in the end I didn't mind because I did want to spend more time with this book, and as a result, I do think I'm going to read on in the series. A fantasy and a series? Who is she? Number 7 is a nonfiction pick, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. As said, it's a nonfiction, somewhat self-helpy, but I think it falls more on the psychology aspect. Reading this book felt very validating in a way that both hurt me to read and healed me in doing so. I didn't expect it to go so well because I tend to stay away from anything that might be categorized as self-help. But like I said, this kind of falls more towards psychology because it didn't ever feel like the tone in the book wasn't like, you should do this. This is how you change your life. This is how you heal. This is how you grow. It didn't feel like that. There were some things, but more often than not, it just read like an objective viewing of what this experience is like and an acknowledging or what it might feel like to be an emotionally immature parent yourself. I saw a lot of myself on both sides of the fence there. Not an always pleasant experience, but overall, I think this book is great. And I can't wait to read it again. Number 8 is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. This is an LGBTQIA plus memoir. It was very short, but heartfelt. It was a heartfelt little read about the author's experience when navigating air identity. Maya Kobabe uses air pronouns. It just felt very honest, and it's like an insight that I, as a cisgendered person, will never actually experience myself. Being able to kind of peek behind that veil and see such a raw experience shared with me in such a way, it felt just warm and special to read. Number 9 is One of Our Own by Lucinda Berry. This is a mystery thriller, and I have never read anything by Lucinda Berry before, but you better believe I'm gonna be reading some now. I loved the audiobook too. I think it's only available in audiobook, and that's fine by me because you know who narrated it? JJ from Criminal Minds, AJ Cook. Are you kidding me? And this just elevated the whole experience. She did a great job. This follows a mother who works at a mental health hotline and receives a very concerning phone call from a young girl in her area that also happens to go to the school that her teenage son goes to. And some of the things that she shares on this mental health hotline has this mom freaking out. Like, do I know this person? Does my son know this person? Blah, 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 blah. And so I'm not going to tell you anything else. It's very tense, very gripping. It's just very devastating in a way. And I was just sat the whole time. Next, The Dead Cattail Assassins by Pease Jelly Clark. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. This is a sci-fi fantasy. I know. Fantasy? 2 in 1 list. I promise I'm not changing before your eyes. But you know what? Change isn't always a bad thing. I welcome it. Every now and then one of these fantasies slip in and they do a good job. So here we are. I am a fan of anything written by P. Jelly Clark. This follows an undead assassin as she goes about her duties that she is sworn to uphold via the rules of the matron of assassins that she is allegiant to. It's dark, it's twisty, and I'm not going to tell you anything else. It was great, and I think you should read it. I loved it. So I have 2 more left. The best dark romance I read this year. I know, is there such a thing? There is. And you know what the secret sauce is? Vampires. Raise your hand if you're shocked. Put that hand down. You know what I'm about. Queen Takes Knights by Jolie Sue Burkhart. This is a why choose polyamorous vampire dark romance. Vampire. Did I say that? I think I already said that. If you've been here a while, then you know that I read a lot of dark romance stinkers. And if you scroll through my rant reviews, you'll find all of them because I can't shut up about things that make me mad. I do it for the Vine, aka the YouTube, but you get it. Every now and then, though, one of the books that I pick up isn't terrible. And that's where we are now. I didn't give this 5 stars or anything, but I rated it significantly higher than all of the others in the same genre, so it deserves a spot on this list as well. This follows a young 20-something vampire queen who doesn't know she's a vampire queen, and she's on the run from the monsters who hunt her in the night. All of a sudden, 2 very strapping knights who are sworn to love, serve, and protect her show up, and yeah, it was Polly. It was a bloody good time. The plot was interesting enough for me to consider continuing the series because aside from the spice and the intermingling of the 2 men who were already kind of into each other, and then she shows up on the scene and the blood and the feeding and also I really liked that they discussed menstruation in this book. Not a lot of books do, and I think that it's weird, especially when it's a vampire thing, because I fear that if I was a vampire who was fueled by and controlled by my insane need for blood at all times, a monthly visitor in the shape of blood excreting from you would be an issue. Not a bad one, but it would come up. So that was another reason that I really liked it. I liked it. Sue me. Last but not least was the recent edition. I just finished this a couple days ago, and it's Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. This is, I don't even know what to say about this. This is a paranormal horror novella, and it's set in a town in Texas where five friends perform a seance, and it's all fun and games until something goes wrong and one of the girls starts acting real freaking weird. It's very The Craft. It's very we are the weirdos, mister, kind of thing. It's also like demon possession, but it's not demon possession. It was so good, and it's a really short read, so you can probably finish it before the end of the year is over and just add it to your tally. I freaking loved this. Oh my God. There's so many aspects at play. I will say that the POV kind of changes without any warning, but it was well written, and so it didn't take away from the reading experience. That's the difference, isn't it? Isn't that the difference, really? I can't wait to read it again. I might read it again next year just so I can do a deep dive review because I had such a good time, and I can't wait to read more of V. Castro's work. Okay, we've concluded the best of 2024 section, and now we move on to the most disappointing section. What makes that different than the worst? Well, I'll tell you. Some books I pick up and I know it's going to be bad, and then it is. That goes in the worst. Some books I pick up and I think I'm going to like it. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I have secured my seatbelt. I have removed my shoes, and I'm ready to go on this ride. However, upon blast off, I realize this ride sucks. Expectation versus reality. The books aren't even that bad. They're like 3, 2.5 stars. They're not terrible, but I had this idea of what it was going to be in my mind, and it did not meet those expectations. So therefore, it is one of my most disappointing reads. Okay? Do we understand each other? I feel like we do. I don't think I needed to explain that, but I did it anyway because I cover my bases. I got a lot of energy today. I've had like 2 cups of coffee. Can you tell? Okay, so the first most disappointing book that I read in 2024, I hate to say it, Grimstone by Sophie Lark. This is a dark romance of sorts. It's different than what I thought it was going to be. So I'm just going to say dark romance. There's a young girl. She inherits this dilapidated old house from her late uncle. So she and her younger brother, who she feels responsible for, even though they're both like adults, move in and start renovating. There is a creepy, pale pariah of a man, at least to the citizens in the town nearby, living next door, and he's kind of a dick, but he's kind of hot also. And I was excited because I've read Sophie Lark's stuff before and I enjoyed it. So I really expected to love this one, and I just didn't. I usually love a spooky house setting. I love, like, there's a weird, skinny, pale, hot man that's kind of an outcast. I like those. I like those. And the fact that he is described as weird, outsider, always up at night, kind of nocturnal with pale skin had me thinking vampires. But it wasn't. He was just a pale guy who has insomnia. So instead of everything that I thought I was getting, it was just weird, cheesy smut with a lot of strange things going on that left me with more questions than answers. So that's what got it on the most disappointing list. Number 2 on this list is Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. Now, this is speculative literary fiction, I believe. I don't really know what speculative fiction is. I don't really know what literary fiction is. I don't really know what anything is, but I think that's what this is. This follows a girl living in Silicon Valley and making very questionable decisions and choices, and she's being followed around by a very real black hole that only she can see. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it was written. There was just a lot going on that I didn't connect with, so it made the whole book feel very flat to me. I always say that there's a chance that maybe I'm not smart enough to have gotten what the book was trying to do here for me, but even if that was the case, I left the book feeling disappointed. Next on the list is Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Noscosta. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. This is a monster smut, mainly Minotaur lovin'. A young adult woman starts a new job retrieving fluids from said Minotaur men to make a little extra cash, and we can't falter for that. And that was one thing I did like about the book. It was a very neutral, somewhat pro-Swerk stance, and that was nice. Aside from that, there were like all these little magical creatures that coexisted in this world together, but I didn't get a lot of that. I wanted more of that, oddly enough, which is not the usual thing I'm looking for in these kinds of books, but I would have really appreciated having more of a presence in this one for some reason. I think it was because the next problem I have spanned the whole book. Now, I understand that she's got a job to do, okay? And I understand that it's in somewhat of a medical setting, but the way it was so clinical, every interaction that they had, except for like one near the end, it made it so boring. Like, why did I feel like I was at the doctor getting the rundown of what they found in my blood work? Like every single time. And the way like I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It was so freaking boring. How can it be boring? Okay, so there was this one part at the end where they were finally like, and he goes like, he has this moment, this like grandeur moment where he's like, I am the Minotaur in the maze and I'm coming for you. And I was like, but that was the only time that I almost thought about sitting up and paying attention because it was just so disappointing. Next up, we have Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison, which is disappointing because I really wanted to like it. This is a culty horror novel and it's also pink, and I feel like owning a pink book is always a win, even if the book ends up not being great, because you get to keep the pink book and pink is my favorite color. But yeah, I didn't really love this. This was my first Rachel Harrison. I would read more from her because, like I said, just because it was disappointing doesn't mean it was necessarily the worst thing I've ever read or even close to it. I just felt like the plot was a little bit predictable in a way that wasn't enjoyable. And then by the time we did get to where we were going, I had already like checked out. I was like, okay, yeah, of course this is where we are. Duh. And there were a couple of things that I would have changed or done different or wished had gone differently. And you know, all that leads me to Disappointed Avenue. It happens to the best of us, even the pink books. So I read 2 classics this year that I really thought I was going to like, and then I didn't, which is why they are on this list. So the first one is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. I love anything that is like a remake of this classic story of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, but man, this original text, y'all are better than me because I wouldn't have gotten anything good from this. It was basically written like one long run-on sentence. It was so, punctuation, my guy. It was there. We didn't just invent that last week. So that was disappointing. And then the next one was The Painted Veil by W. Somerset Maugham. Now, this is going to sound weird, but I blame Edward Norton for me being disappointed in this book. Why? Great question, and I'll tell you. He starred in the film adaptation of this, and I feel like he did a lot of heavy lifting as far as the storytelling goes. So this is the classic story following just two mainly, but like a little cluster of people that are just fucking awful people and doing awful things to each other. They're selfish. They're hateable with no redeeming qualities, especially in the book. Like, I feel like the movie softened them in a way. There was a little hope to be derived from it. And as I said, I like Edward Norton a lot, so I think he did a lot for this. But the book version, oh my God, these people are just absolutely terrible. And that's saying a lot because I can enjoy said books, even if I hate every character in it. I mean, take Ghost Eaters, for example. Not a likable character in the bunch. 5 stars. But my God, this was terrible. It was just people being awful to each other for 100 and whatever pages. And it was a little like racist. I mean, it's a product of its time, but like, ew, you know, also. And like, it's got a plague going on. Like, it's in the middle of a cholera epidemic. I expected to like it. You know how I like my plague fiction. But nah, no. The movie is better than the book in this case. Hands down. Disappointed. Never reading it again. Actually giving my copy away. Next up, we have another spirit breaker, which is Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates. Now, I love Darcy Coates' writing. I've really enjoyed Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. This is a short story, spooky story collection. And you know what? It's on me. This is on me. I have to stop giving short story collections a chance because I just don't like them. I very rarely like them. One of the only ones I like was written by one of my friends. And even though I know it's because that one felt very good and completed, all of the stories could stand on their own. All of them were well written and I liked all of them and wanted more from all of them. She's my friend. So anything I say on the subject matter is going to seem biased and like it's not coming from a genuine place. But every single other short story collection that I read, I just don't like them because you can tell that one, maybe two of the short stories in the collection were the main characters and they had real good bones. And then there's like 6 to 10 other short stories with absolutely nothing going on. And I would have just rathered you sat with one of the good stories and made it into a full novel than to give me a collection of only okay stories with 1 or 2 that were good. So yeah, I just need to stop reading short story collections because without a doubt, they will always end up on my most disappointing list. Next, we have Willing Victim by Kara McKenna. This is an erotica romance originally published in the 2010s, I believe. So just, you know, take that into account with it. I've read Kara McKenna before. I want to like her work so bad. So maybe this is another one that's my fault. This is on me because a lot of the same problems that I see in this book showed up in other writings that I've read from her. So this follows an underground boxer and a young woman who's a waitress with a degree that she's not sure what to do with. She's kind of at a weird spot. He introduces her into the world of BDSM. And I do appreciate that the BDSM aspects of this whole thing were represented in a way that won't cause anyone to have to go to the emergency room like when freaking 50 Shades came out. Limits, hard and soft discussed. There were safe words discussed. He kind of walked her through everything. All of this stuff. Like, it was very well flushed out, and I appreciate that. But it was very straight. It was very straight. There was a lot of language around, like, my feminine need to take care of him and his masculine smell. What does masculinity smell like? And it was also just, there was some weird interactions. It's just disappointing, but actually, I shouldn't be disappointed because I kind of feel this way about all of her books. Except for the one that she co-wrote with Charlotte Stein. I really liked that one. It's called Way Down Deep. I made my book club read it. Was it this year? Either this year or last January. I have a mandate in January because that's when my birthday is. So I made everybody read it. But yeah, Willing Victim, disappointing. All right. That is the end of my disappointed list. How do you feel? How are we feeling? Are you ready for my worst? I hope so, because here they come. Once again, I don't even really feel the need to do this here, because if you just go through all the rants I posted this year, those are the worst ones, with the exception of like maybe 1 or 2. I don't like, some of them don't have a rant review, but most of them do. So let's get started. These are in no particular order, but you could probably guess which one I hated the most. Leave your guesses in the comments. Not 1, but 2 spots on this lovely little list are taken up by a one Miss HD Carlton. Give her a round of applause. So the first one is Satan's Affair. I can't believe I read that this year. That feels like 10 years ago. God, these books do suck. I've said this before in all of the rants that I've done on any of her writing. Like, she should be studied in the way that she can make it feel like time is moving backwards when I try to read her books. Satan's Affair is the prequel novella in the Haunting Adeline universe, duet, whatever you want to call it. And it follows a young girl who is not freaking well and has a skewed view of the world and reality. She lives inside the walls of a traveling carnival called Satan's Affair, and she can smell evil people, and then she gets rid of them. So it was terrible. I have a review up on my channel. Make sure you turn the volume down if you watch it. The microphone was super sensitive. I do not use that microphone anymore, but just fair warning. I hated this. I also hated the second book, which is probably the reason I didn't read more this year, because it absolutely drained me. Hunting Adeline, book 2, in the cat and mouse duet. Haunting Adeline being book 1, Satan's Affair being the prequel, and then we have Hunting Adeline. It was like 600 or something pages. I had to break those reviews up into 2 parts. It was so long. It was so long. And like I said, it feels like I'm moving backwards through pudding when I'm trying to read it. It's just the worst. And I'm so excited to be able to read Where's Molly by H.C. Carlton in the same universe, because you guys helped me get Haneen and her family to their fundraising goal so that they can evacuate safely out of Gaza. I'm actually excited about that portion of it. The Where's Molly portion has me not being able to sleep at night. But rest assured, I will be reading and reviewing it as soon as I possibly can. Anyway, Hunting Adeline, like I said, is book 2. It's just a continuation of book 1, which is just about a weird hacker guy who's a vigilante and takes out PDF file rings, but he also stalks and victimizes his girlfriend Adeline into submission so that she thinks they're in love, but it's really just a whole bunch of attacking her and R-ing her and crossing her boundaries and just bleh. And there's anti-Semitism in the books. There's problematic content around work in the books. There's just terrible, clunky, juvenile, stupid as shit writing. And in book 2 specifically, there's a lot of farting that's going on. And I really I don't want the answer, but like, why? Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Please leave me alone. But like, why? This is a rhetorical question. Anyway, hated those 2. Let's move on to the last book in the Vicious Lost Boys series by Nikki St. Crow, The Fae Princes. I have reviews up on my channel for 1, 2, 3, 4 of those books. There's only 4 in the series, and I read all of them. I was commissioned to do so. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Had such a lovely time. This book is a Peter Pan Lost Boys retelling with smut, and they're aged up. But you know what? Leave me alone. I hated these. I don't hate them the way I hate Hunting Adeline. I don't hate them in the way that I hate some of the other things that are going to show up on this list, but they're not good. I started to review this because I wanted to kind of be done with this series first, and so I started reading The Fae Princes, and it was so boring that I had to turn to and complete the review and reading of Hunting Adeline just to feel something. The repetitive nature of the way Nikki St. Crow writes makes me want to put my head through this window, like just right on through it. Boonk. If a piece of information was communicated to someone, it was communicated to everyone. Like, you know, obviously it's a why choose because there's a bunch of Lost Boys, Peter Pan, the darling girl that they're all really interested in banging. And so, you know, let's say Peter Pan learns about something going on with Winnie, and then he comes back to the treehouse and Vane's like, what's going on? Instead of being like, I filled Vane in, he just goes through it all again and again and again. Anytime that information needs to be communicated to someone else that wasn't in the room when he did it the first time, we're doing it again. I hate that. So, yeah, the whole series sucked. But this is the one I read this year, so it's in the worst. All reviews can be found on my channel. Next up, we have Driving My Obsession by Lauren Beale. This is an incel unaliver romance where a man decides to seek out vengeance and stalk and victimize a swerker with a heart of gold who's not like the other swerkers because he's angry at women because of something his unwell mother did to him when he was a baby. This was terrible, and the full review is up on my channel, but I just need to say it was terrible. He's literally just an incel, and it's a dark romance, so essentially you're telling me that I'm supposed to like him. If this was an erotic horror, it would have been a little different. It would have been received differently, but it wasn't. It's a dark romance, and I hated every single second of it. I wish to God, any God that's up there, I hope and pray I will never have to read another Lauren Beale. I won't be doing it without financial compensation. She is on the level of Haunting Adeline. She's on that bullshit ass level. So next up, it's not a carnal hatred, but I definitely, of all of the holiday themed books that I read this year, and I read a lot of them, I didn't like Stuffed by Jessica Gazziola the most, or the least. What did I say? This isn't even a dark romance. This is just a girl going home for Thanksgiving, and the guy that was friends with her older brother that she always had a crush on is there, and it is awkward to read. It is clunky. It was boring. It had some weird stuff around like weight, and like I have a whole full review up. You can go watch it if you want to. But yeah, it was a little groomy. It was a little weird, and I didn't like it. So here it is. Next up, we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, initially, I read this a couple years ago, and I had a very different experience with it because over time, I've gotten better at critically reviewing the books that I read. And so the emotional manipulation that Colleen Hoover depends on when writing her books didn't work on me the second time around. But I did read it again this year so that I could do a rant review, especially because I knew the movie was coming out and I wanted to review that too. So that review is up on my channel as well. I'm very proud of it. It's my first movie book review in the same video. This is labeled a romance novel, but it really is more just contemporary fiction or women's fiction about a woman who finds herself in an abusive relationship with a man that she's in love with. She loves him, he loves her, but he abuses her. And it is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own experience while living in her home as a child and witnessing the abuse that her mother was subjected to at the hands of her father. And that tone did come through. I think that you can definitely tell that Colleen Hoover had a front row seat to what this would look like and how this would be living in a house with someone who's volatile and unpredictable and abusive. Labeling it a romance was a choice, and it's the wrong one. I talk about this a lot. Like, you are giving me expectations when you market your book. And if you market your book inappropriately or incorrectly or inaccurately, it might lead to me having a negative experience with your book. So it leads me to not feel very safe in Colleen Hoover's hands. Now, her books are very readable, but I hated this. I didn't like it. So naturally, it's on the worst list. Next up, we have Little Stranger by Lee Rivers. I have a review up on my channel about this too. So, woohoo, we're so blessed. Except this is foster sibling incest romance, and I hated it. I hated it. I don't know what else to say. I didn't like it. And the full review is up. If you want all the spoilers, all the gushy, gross details, they're up there and you know where to find them. Last, and certainly not least, I was going to put this one in my most disappointing category, but this is on me. I fully accept 100% of the responsibility of why I was disappointed in this book because I keep freaking giving this author a shot. And I shouldn't. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I have read The Love Hypothesis. I read Love Theoretically. Is that what it is? Yeah. I have tried to read Bride and I just can't. And then I read Not in Love. And this is just a regurgitation of the same bullshit that I hate in her other stuff. So it's a STEMinist romance, like women in STEM, which would tell you, like you can draw from that this woman is supposed to be smart. She's not. They never are. She is in love with somebody that she shouldn't be, or she has some sort of a romance with someone that she shouldn't. And so the whole book is like them going back and forth and maybe should we, I don't know, kind of stuff. And it was just dumb. But I want to tell you the moment and the quote that made me know in my heart that this was doomed. I was listening to my audiobook. I was in my pool. It was the summer. I was minding my business. I was just going along to get along, and I was reading it because it was a pretty short read on audiobook. When the girl and the guy, the main people, are together, one of the first interactions they have, she smiles at him, and it's in his POV. We're in his POV, so he's dumb too. He says her smile was so good or whatever, and then he says, quote, "I could feel it in my marrow wrapped around my balls." STEM science, biology, human anatomy, knowing things in that realm, right? And they're both in STEM, near, around, adjacent to STEM. But even if you're not, I am nowhere near a STEM. I dropped out of college twice, okay? And I have no degree to show for myself. But I know, and you know, and now we'll all know, if you didn't know, you will now, there isn't marrow in your balls. Your balls don't have any bones. If they do, if you have calcified bone balls, then you need to see a doctor. Yeah, that would be my advice, but what do I know? I'm not in STEM. Felt it in my marrow wrapped around my balls. I paused it instantly. I like scrambled over to the side of the pool so that I could pause it and rewind it and be like, no, surely not, surely not. And the book was like, don't call me Shirley. And the book was dumb, as most of my experiences with Allie Hazelwood books have been. I'm not going to tell you I didn't have fun reading The Love Hypothesis, because I did, because I like Raylo. But am I going to tell you that it's good? Am I going to tell you that this woman that's in STEM that they kept telling me was smart the whole time said, he's so big, he can fit my whole breast in his mouth? You mean like Kirby? Like, And then Love theoretically had a similar situation. This woman's in STEM. She's supposed to be smart, top of her field. She wakes up being spooned by a man, and in the morning men get a little bone in their balls, Still not a bone. It's still not a bone. And no matter what you call it, it's still not a bone. But anyway, someone is firm at her back, and in her head, her STEM, top of her field, smarty smart pants brain, she tells herself, oh, well, it must be just because he has to pee. That's what happens with men in the mornings, right? They just have to pee, so they have like an erection, like a pee erection. Tell me these bitches are smart one more time, I'll freaking knock you out. Dishonor. Shame. All right. So those are my best, worst, and most disappointing reads of 2024. This was so much fun. I appreciate you being here and listening to me yap about these books, good, bad, and the ugly, and the disappointing beyond all reason that I read this year. I look forward to hearing about all of your reads. Let me know, and leave me a like if you enjoyed this video, and share it with a friend if you feel so inclined. Please consider signing up for my bindery page. You can sign up as a free member and get Discord access, and we have a lovely little community over there. You also get like newsletters and book recommendations and mini reviews and things like that, even on the free tier. If you choose to upgrade to a paid membership, you'll get things like early access to rant reviews before anyone else gets to see them, members only content, exclusives like reading vlogs, bonus content, access to Unhinged Bible Study. If you're here looking for Unhinged Bible Study, if you've been wondering where it lives on my bindery, but you have to sign up for a paid membership to get access to it. Same with Patreon. You can go there too. What a great year 2024 has been. I don't want to get all mushy on you because I feel like I did that in my 25K Q&A, but we had a lot of joys this year. I hit 25,000 subs. That's insane growth in the course of a year. You guys showed up and showed out when I asked you to help me get my friend's fundraiser to its goal. And as a result, now I have to read Where's Molly, which is not a good thing, but getting her to the goal and getting them evacuated to safety is. You guys are really awesome, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm thankful to be in community with you. Thank you for supporting me in whatever ways you're able to. I appreciate every single one of you. You've gotten me here where I get to do this for a living, and that is incredible. I'm having so much fun. I cannot wait to make content for you in 2025. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a year. I love you. You don't have to say it back. Happy New Year, and I will see you in 2025.